Hello, my name is Jason Smith and I lead the team at Shopper Intelligence US. I'm here today to share a quick report that we just released around the GLP-1 shoppers within the snacking department. I wanted to highlight a few of the insights that we learned and also share how you can get a copy of the report as well as an upcoming webinar that we're going to be putting on for the Category Management Association. But just to share a little bit more about this particular report, the report that I'll share with you today highlights the last year of field work that we've done in the U.S. Now, over this time, we've surveyed roughly about 120 categories and surveyed about 160,000 U.S. shoppers. What I'll be highlighting today is just a small snippet of those shoppers. We're really isolating snacking department shoppers as well as affluent shoppers to find out how those shoppers shop, those that take GLP-1s versus those that do not, to kind of analyze, what are some of those opportunities. Now, snacking department is made up of 10 different categories, which are listed here below. So just know that when we're looking at this data. We also track this in alcohol and other food categories, and so some of these insights are a little bit different depending on what part of the story you're looking at. So just to give you a quick highlight into a few of the reports that we're going to be releasing. One is kind of digging into, how do people in snacking prefer to shop the category? Now, we ask a question to say, would you like to make your decision quickly? Would you like to take more time? And what we found is that shoppers that take GLP-1s are much more willing to take more time when they're buying snacking. It's typically kind of a newer purchase for them. I mean, since they're taking these drugs, potentially it could be a newer experience. Maybe they've only been on the drugs a few months, so there's still some education and uncertainty when they're shopping for food in the grocery store. Now, when we look at how are people triggered to buy the category, typically when people are on GLP-1s, they're much more likely to plan to buy the purchase before they enter the store or the website. You can see here the plan percentage of GLP-1 shoppers versus non-GLP-1. It's fairly significant. Now, the interesting note about, although the category purchase is planned, it's not an autopilot purchase as we would define it. So typically an autopilot purchase would be shopping for milk, where you're buying it on a weekly purchase, buying the same brand, the same SKU, pretty much every week, not putting a lot of thought into it. This is not one of those purchases. Although you're planning to buy the category, you're still kind of open to what you might buy. Now, kind of the inverse of planned is unplanned or impulse. And you can see here, people that are not on GLP-1s are much more likely to be impulsively triggered, many times due to craving snacking products. So that's just kind of it. That one makes sense in a lot of ways. You're more impulsive when you're not on GLP-1s, where with GLP-1s, it's a little bit more intentional. Now, another thing that we wanted to dig into is what we call leakage. So we ask a question, have you left the category in the retailer recently for any of these reasons? Now, we have more reasons that are even listed here, but you can see here that more than 3/4 of the shoppers that are taking GLP-1s and snacking have left recently, where those that are not, it's less than half. And you can see here there's a lot of different reasons that are driving this with the shopper. And the two that kind of jump off the list for me are, the confusion and being overwhelmed. Those are all 3 times higher than the levels of people that are not on GLP-1. So certainly there's an opportunity to kind of educate the shopper and help them along the journey. Now, another question that we ask is, what are some improvement opportunities would you like to see in the category at the retailer? And you can see here, the shoppers that are taking GLP-1s are much more likely to offer this type of feedback. One of the options that we give in the survey is, I have no, improvement opportunities. And you can see here that a lot of shoppers taking GLP-1s have just definitely things that they want to see improved versus shoppers that do not. And then when we boil it down to what are some of those top things that they ask for, so we allow them to give us multiple improvement opportunities, and then if they give us more than one, we try to find out what's that top one. And you can see here that ease of shop, shelf signage, theater, which is inspiration, and information and education. Those are significantly higher than those non-GLP-1 shoppers. So a lot of confusion, looking for some help, looking for some education. Now, the last bit that I wanted to share was around pricing. This was a piece that was actually fairly surprising when we started digging into the data. It was our assumption with GLP-1 shoppers, it was all about innovation. And what we found is that there's definitely a lot more around price that we want to dig into as we start zooming out and looking at other categories within the store. But there were 4 different questions that we asked that I wanted to highlight that all kind of dig into a little bit of the mindset of the shopper around price. Now, one of the questions that we ask is, what is the role of price in your decision-making process in the category? And you can see here, it's definitely much stronger than for shoppers that are not taking GLP-1s. When we ask them about price perception, there's a perception that prices have gone up higher when you're taking GLP-1s. I mean, there's a much more sensitivity to it. When we ask shoppers, have you recently switched to a different brand in the category due to price, this is one that really jumped off the page for us, where it was, almost 3 times higher the rate versus non-GLP-1 shoppers. So certainly at the point of purchase, it's very important to make sure that you're showing the right value for your brand. And then the last bit is around being open to buying private label. Now, when we really try to boil this down and understand what's driving this, I mean, there's a lot of theories that go around in terms of, why shoppers are more sensitive to price. And certainly from, observations, the price of the drugs are quite expensive, and certainly there's a lot of lifestyle changes that the person might be having to make, buying new clothes and different things that could be putting a strain on their budget. So more that we're going to drill into in the future, but just something that we were definitely surprised by seeing. Now, just to sum up these last 3 slides, the 3 big takeaways we had was really around pre-trip and in-store influence. Certainly, the category purchase is heavily planned. I didn't share some of these insights because this is more of a greater deck, but the shoppers are heavily influenced by media, digital media, shelf merchandising, a lot of things that are triggering the shopper to actually pick up the product, once they start shopping for the category. So very important to get that pre-trip, but also in-store influence maximized. The second bit is really around simplifying and supporting the aisle. So some of the confusion, being overwhelmed, looking for education, shoppers need help and they want help. And so if we can help guide them and maybe ensure that their trip is a lot easier, we can make sure that they don't walk away and potentially go to another retailer. And then the last bit is around value and price. So shoppers, that price perception, the value perception is very important, especially when a shopper is engaging with the shelf or the website. Determining what product they want to buy and being able to find it easily is certainly important, but having that value and that price winning on that is very important when a shopper is making that final brand decision. Oops, sorry. So if you want to learn more, there's my contact as well as Erica's contact as well. So please reach out anytime if you want to learn more. We also have a link on the bottom left, or a QR code, where if you want to book a demo with me and dig into our data, whether you want to dig into GLP-1s or kind of zoom out and look at all the 120 categories that we're tracking, schedule time with me and we can spend 30 minutes kind of digging into your particular category. And then on the bottom right, we also have a free download for our shopper satisfaction report that we released earlier this year that highlighted the top retailers to find out which retailers are winning on shopper satisfaction and why. And then actually, I want to leave a couple more things. One is if you want to get a copy of this particular deck, we have a link in the comments. So just click on the link and it'll take you to a place where you can download the actual deck that I just shared today. And then if you're interested in, we have a October 29th webinar with the Category Management Association where we're going to be digging into GLP-1s in a lot greater depth. We're not going to just look at snacking or affluent shoppers. We're going to zoom out and kind of find out those bigger opportunities. But if you're interested in getting a link to the webinar, just comment webinar in the link and I'll make sure to send you the link for the webinar as soon as I see it. So just appreciate you hearing this note, and just if you have any questions, please contact us anytime to learn more. Thanks a lot.